Hello. This is Tom from Tom and Ruth Philippine Adventures. Today I want to talk about when was the last time you guys wrote a check? I had to write a check. And I had to contact my bank. Are these still good? It's been, I don't know, 8 years? Maybe longer than that, because I didn't write a check too much in the States. How many of you still write checks? And I started looking at that, thinking about that. I go, well, not many. Not many of us. So I go, well, it's, you type it out, and I go, I forget, is it 1 over 100 or 0 over 100? I'm like, wow, okay, so things are different. Here in the Philippines, there are no checks, and of course, there's only savings accounts. They have what they call no checking accounts, but they're all savings here. So you used to get a credit card with savings. And so they're getting the, I want to show you, they're getting the mango out of the tree, and so they're throwing stick rocks and everything else. So, but how about that, for example? Another thing that's different is if and when someone goes back from here and goes back to U.S. But what if you have to use the restroom, right? And they don't have toilet paper here, but you got to use it again in the States, or do you have to use it? We don't have toilet paper here. I choose not to use toilet paper because it's not septic safe. They say it is. They don't say anything. I think it is, but I don't know. But I'm not going to put that stuff down my septic. Depending on what it is, it can really mess up your septic all the way. So we have our gray water and then our black water, and our gray water goes somewhere else, and our black water goes somewhere else. So that's another thing. Taking showers, hot water, things like, everybody knows that. You know, taking a shower here is, but something I found very interesting here is most toilets are really short to the ground. So we're used to higher toilets. Ruth would sit on our toilet in the bathroom, swing her legs, right? Because it's higher. Here they're very low, or even with the ground. So what you have to do is most Filipino will stand on it and use toilet instead of sitting on it. Like I would sit, even if it's low to the ground. I try to. So that creates sometimes a little different thing. Hold on, I got these. Sorry about that. Ruth's got what they call a window machine. She put out front. This is her savings. This is for her savings going to U.S. And she paid for her own money, her hard-earned money. And just selling her turkeys and things like that, whatever else, cakes. So she bought this and put it up. Then every penny's going to USA. So also, I wanted to talk about this. I got distracted. Sorry. When you go to restaurants, sometimes you have waitress comes up and takes your order, and then they bring you your food. They don't do any upselling at the restaurants, which is it's okay. That actually finds rather nice. And upsell and say, hey, would you like a cake or pie or anything with this, or things like that. And that's okay, because sometimes you can get overwhelmed by that when you go to a restaurant in the States. Something here, though, that I found was quite interesting. I recently asked someone at one of the restaurants in town is, are you getting any tips? And she said a year before COVID, a lot of the foreigners would tip. And you always tip, people like me, and there's quite a few others that come in there, but they're regulars, meaning they actually live here. They're not tourists or coming in the city. But she said that now, of course, no Filipino tip. Nobody tips money, meaning what they get daily salary, that's it, and no tips. The tips is kept by, puts in a pool, and then the pool is then shared with the employees at the end of the week. So when we go, we always try to tip. A lot of times people say, well, how much do you tip? Tipping here in the Philippines can vary. Depends on, because if you're eating a meal, it's $2 or $3. How much you tip? You tip $1, tip 20 peso. So I always, minimum, I give $1. Sometimes I give more. Sometimes I give $2 to everybody in the restaurant, whoever works there, just because. It's $2. Give 5 employees $10. It's always good to do that. That's one thing that is slack here. That is they have a hard time finding people anyway to work. Believe it or not, Philippines, they have a hard time. Even now to this day, Ollie has 6 openings, and he's had those 6 openings forever. And the ones that work, he turns them like water. It's just constantly flowing, you know. Same old story like it is in the States. Nobody wants to work, you know. Depositing and sending money is another thing you have to think about when you're here in the Philippines. You can, say for instance, you get a check in, say it's in the States, and you have to have somebody deposit there because you can't really deposit anything here. You can, if you, for some reason, say you do get a check. I don't know why you would get one here. But say for instance, the guys, and this is the fault of having accounts here. So you have an account here and you get a check in. How are you going to deposit in that account? Well, sometimes you take a picture and you have what's called online deposits and things like Capital One. All the banks have it. But even that is skeptical sometimes because they don't recognize it, don't like it because the IP address is shown outside the country. So you got to be, it's like, it's amazing. We're getting too sophisticated for our own good. I really have to say that. Sophistication that's a big word for me. But it's really, it seems that we're getting so sophisticated on these things that if an IP shows outside the country, for example, I signed on Amazon and I have a seller account there. I haven't sold anything. I have things on there, but I'm not selling anything because I'm not really ready to get into that arena. I was in that arena heavily, and I'm not ready to get into it because it takes large investment of money to devote into that. And so I preliminary backed off of that because I need to devote an X amount of dollars into that, and I'm not ready to do that. But even there, we notice you're outside the country. Yeah, I usually use a VPN. Well, I forgot to turn VPN on. And so they said, you're outside the country, so guess what? It starts a whole new fiasco. They were ready to shut me down. Thought the account was hacked. Recently, I had someone ask me also about they're arriving here for the first time. They've never been out of the States before. In fact, they've never been out of their town or city in forever. I have another gentleman ask me that, and then I had another gentleman that's been outside their area, out of their city, and traveled a little bit in the States only, but never been outside the country, and arrived here in the Philippines and wondering about the visa situation. They were actually kind of confused because it was never really stated to them whenever they got here. They got their 28-day. Both of them got their 28-day. And then they were having, they asked, so what do we do next? Said nothing. You have 28 days to stay here. And so both of them are on the way back. They're going to get married, a married girl, and then bring them to the States. They're getting married, basically, and they're going back to the States. So they asked the story on that. And I said, well, you can stay up to the 3 years, but there's a process. The first 28 days is, of course, they call it 28-day or 30-day visa. And then you go back within that 28 days and they get extended another 2 months, depending on what office it is. Some months are 1 month to 2 months, but 2 months, basically it's $1 a day, $1 a day. Then you go back. On the second trip, say you get to 60 days or you get another 30 days. It's usually 60 days. You pay that fee, and then you go back and you what you call a ACR card. You'll have to get an ACR card after the 90 days of staying here, or 60, depending on what office. And you're going to end up paying $1 a day. After that $1 a day, and you pay the ACR card, it's usually $50, $2,500, or depending what office you're at. It can vary. I've heard stories where they go up from $50 to $80 to $150, depending. Not all offices are the same. Not all offices are exactly the same. You can actually go to one office. I found that out. I can go to Davao, it's one price. I can go to CDO, it's a different price. Why? I don't know. CDO is a district office. Davao is an office. I don't know if it's a regional or what, but anyway, CDO is cheaper. We would end up going to Davao, and I would end up having $8,000, $9,000. Never could figure it out. Ruth and I could never figure it out. They're never the same. So we left there, ended up going to seemed like every time I start to do something. We ended up going to CDO because it was cheaper. And being cheaper, it was cheaper. You know, I don't know why it's cheaper, but it was just cheaper. So we ended up going there. And at the time, the 13A was easier to get in Davao, but we ended up getting it in CDO because it was easier, we thought, to get it in CDO, and wish we got it in Davao. But that's the way it is. And sometimes you really don't know why They charge different prices, but they do. They just do. So depending on where you're at, like you can go to, I understand, on the other side of CDO, Miss Oriental, in different places where they end up going to CDO, but there's some other branches way off into close to the ocean there that are north, that are different completely, and you can get everything done fine, and it's easier and it's simple, and you don't have to go through all the hassle. But that's the way it is. People living in Makati, Angela City, and things like that, it's easier for them because they can just go there and do things. This next week I will do a video on my, because we're going to head to CDO on Monday, and so I got to do my renewal this year for my 13A, and it should be 350 peso. Gives me an idea where that's going to be cost. Somebody asked me this, and yes, you can rent motorcycles here, and you can rent cars also. They do have a place in town you can rent a car at $60 a day. To rent a car, you have to purchase their insurance, and of course you have to have ID. ID meaning a Philippine driver's license or international driver's license. You can get an international driver's license coming from USA to the Philippines. You can ask your local state, and or I think it's AAA, or somebody could give you an international driver's license. As long as you have a regular driver's license, that makes a lot of difference also. That matters a lot. The people don't realize how important. Here we go again. Anyway, I'll cut the stream off. Family's here. A lot of noise. God bless everybody. Thank you so much.